Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain, where we love to dive into all things bookish and literary and all that sort of fun stuff. And today's book is a book that I kind of ran across happenstance, or accidentally, I suppose I could say, because I ran across it on my NetGalley account, and it seems to have come out originally. It says, according to NetGalley, or not NetGalley, I'm sorry, Goodreads, this says first published February 10th of 2015, but then it also says the first paperback was published September 13th of 2022 by Solaris. So just kind of not so sure, because I thought this book was coming out soon. So maybe it's already out and maybe you can find it, or it may be the audiobook version I have is coming out soon. I did receive the audiobook version from NetGalley, and I wanted to provide my thoughts on this book with the hope that maybe if it sounds like something you're interested in, that you would go out and give it a chance. Now, I give this book 4 stars, and I will dive into my thoughts and feelings on this book here in just a few minutes, but I want to give you guys the summary first so we can then kind of understand what's going on a little bit and then see what happens from there. So this starts off on Goodreads, a beautiful new edition from Moreno-Garcia. Oh, the author is Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and this says a beautiful new edition of Moreno-Garcia's stunning debut, featuring an illustrated cover by legendary artist Jimmy Tierney. And it is quite a pretty cover. It's purple, and it looks kind of like what... If you read this book, I think it's meant to depict their kind of little pit, or their area that they kind of carve out of an old, worn, like kind of rundown factory where they tend to do their quote-unquote spells. Mexico City, 1988, long before iTunes or MP3s, you said I love you with a mixtape. Meche, awkward and 15, discovers how to cast spells using music, and with her friends Sebastian and Daniela, will piece together their broken families and even find love. 2 decades after abandoning the metropolis, Meche returns for her estranged father's funeral, reviving memories from her childhood she thought she buried a long time ago. What really happened back then? Is there any magic left? Now, I will say I have some feelings on this book. It is considered fantasy fiction, magical realism, and young adult, with music and urban fantasy. Definitely leans heavily on the magical realism and the young adult. I would even say that this book leans a lot into teen angst, and I think that was one of the things that kind of rubbed me a little bit kind of wrong at times, is I don't remember being so hateful when I was 15. I think in a lot of ways I must have been like Daniela, so Meche has 2 best friends, and they are kind of the 3 more or less outcasts of their school, of kind of any real social circle. They have each other, but they don't really have a lot of other people that they associate with in society so much, so they really lean on each other a lot. Now, Meche's family is not, I guess, holding together well. Her mother and father fight constantly because her father is, I don't want to say he's deadbeat, but in a lot of ways he had a lot of aspirations but has let a lot of that go. Her mother also had a lot of aspirations but has just really buckled down, gotten a job, still has some dreams, but really is the only one keeping food on the table. Her grandmother is the one who's more or less raising her right now. And so Meche's angry. She is just angry at like the world, it seems. Sebastian, he he's also comes from a broken family. His father left, but his father used to kind of like hit on him and his brother, I think. So things are kind of better now that his dad's out of the picture. But he also lives in a very, very low income, to point of poverty sort of household. And I'm not sure if Meche and Daniela even really know to what point of poverty Sebastian lives in. And then there's Daniela, whose family is actually a little bit more well-to-do, and it seems as though she's the one who's kind of the frilly pink, and you can kind of picture her as being the cream puff kind of girl, and she seems to be like the happy-go-lucky one, almost what I would call the glue of the friendship. Meche is more of the leader, and Sebastian is like, I don't know, the token guy, I guess you could say. But Daniela seems to be like the heart, if anybody is the heart of that trio. And so she's always trying to like bake and trying to mediate and trying her best to just fix things. And I think if I were to be anybody in this like trio of friendship, then I would try to be like, I would have been the Daniela of the group. But when it comes to reading this story, there were so many points where Meche really, really made me, as the reader, just very angry, because I would have fully supported Sebastian and Daniela for just walking away from her and not being her friend on so many occasions. And I think that says a lot for Sebastian and Daniela for sticking around. I don't know if that means that they're like gluttons for punishment or what, or if they really like loved her, like, but she was not a good friend to them at any point. And she was a very selfish friend. And I think it, to be a friend, you have to like, to have a friend, you have to be a friend. And she was not a friend to them, like, at almost any point. And there were so many things that were said from her vantage point that when they would say something, she would turn it back on them and just be so angry. And I think that those were some points where it made it very hard for me to keep reading. But I think that angst and emotion was also purposeful from the writer's standpoint. I think she purposefully wrote it that way, because these are teenagers. This is the angst of that particular that particular kind of like what they were going through. This is what they were feeling. And I think that's what it kind of took to make that magic happen, to make the magic real and the spells to work. So as much as I wasn't kind of resonating with some of like what was happening in the friendships, I think some of it was kind of needed in order to really develop the kind of the other level of like the magic layer, that magical realism that we were getting into. And it did. It kind of like it made me angry at times, but again, I think I was meant to be angry at times. And so, but then we flashed to present day, and it was present day in more like the 2010s, because again, this book was originally released in like 2015. And so Meche has grown, Sebastian has grown, Daniela has grown, and we've come back to Mexico City after years of being away, after all the things of childhood have passed. So if they were 15 in 88, they are now, grown adults in like, let's just say 2012 or something of that nature. And so they've become truly different people, although we still see Meche as still being quite selfish, as still being very self-centered, as still harboring this sort of grudge and kind of still being so focused on herself that she can't see beyond her own, like, she can't see beyond other people's flaws to see her own. Like, she projects it all on everyone else, that she can't see herself. And I think that was also a little bit difficult to read as well, is there was not a lot of growth for her. You did see it in Sebastian, you do see it in Daniela, and they even call her out on it in quite a few times, and I was so proud of them, because you could see the way they grew, and you could see the way they had been able to come to terms with a lot of things from their childhood, but she really didn't. Once she moved away from Mexico City, got a career, went out and became like a code monkey, as she called herself, and really just kind of threw herself into work, she just kind of self-isolated, because I don't know if she was trying to protect herself from not being hurt or what, but she really harbored all of that hurt and anger for her entire life. So she never fully like grew up or matured in any meaningful way. And I don't really think that's a spoiler. I think that's me critiquing her as a character. Now I will say it's a very heartfelt book. There's a lot of nostalgia in it. Now I was born in the 80s, so for me, I was a kid in the late 80s and early 90s. That's when I was a kid. So this book is they were teens when I was still a kid, so it's a little bit, they would be a little older than me, if I'm kind of like thinking about it like that. And I'm just reading like this particular review. It says, the friendships of your youth never quite leave us. And just that like sentence alone, like I do actually have one friend. She lives in Houston. And I think if I text her right now, she would probably respond. And she's someone I have known since first grade. She is brilliant. She is beautiful. I love her to death. She has a gorgeous family. I love her, and I don't talk to her nearly enough. Like, I really, really don't. But she's one of those people that anytime she crosses my mind, like I smile, because she is just a light. But like, I think of her when I think of friendships from my youth, and that like there's like one or two other people that I can like think of, and I kind of wonder where they are, because like I can't contact the two other people that I wish I could contact, even though they do mean so much to me, and like if I ran across them, I would hope to be able to give them a hug. But it's just that nostalgia. It's just remembering like those really important people who just kind of were like focal points in your childhood. I guess maybe anchors in your childhood. And yet, so that person gave it a really like a good review. This person, he and I will say in some ways, like I gave it a 4-star, because for me, I think that general angst was a little bit much, and I wish I had seen a little bit more character development with regards to Meche's character. And I think that was kind of one of the elements that was kind of missing for some other people as well. Now, I'm not saying that's for everybody, but this was the first novel for this particular writer. This was the debut novel for Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I had her name right. And so I think she's come a long way. I know she's written other works. According to Goodreads, she has 145 books under her belt. And so congratulations to you, Miss Silvia Moreno-Garcia, for that. But for this being your debut, I think it was good, but I do think some of the characters were just underdeveloped, and that's okay. Otherwise, I liked the use of music with magic and the thought that you could build a spell like you could build a mathematical equation. I thought that was really clever. I kind of wish I had seen that put together a little bit more in the story, because once that was developed early on in the story, I felt like it fell off. And I think that's kind of my final thoughts on that. But anyway, if this sounds like an interesting book for you, I'd love if you gave it a chance, because again, this is really more of a YA coming of age sort of story with music and a little bit of magical realism, but it is quite good. There's a lot of angst and anger, but it is a lot of nostalgia and heartfelt emotion. But anyway, first crushes too. There's some first crushes in there. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next page.